They say the West was wild. But the truth is, it was slow, not the kind of slow you can fill with daydreams or hums or pleasant silence. The West was a different kind of slow. The kind that creeps behind your thoughts like dust in a cracked floorboard. The kind that turns time into a quiet punishment. You wouldn't survive a day here, not because of the gunfights, those were rare, not because of outlaws, most of them died young or died worse, not even because of the diseases, the hunger, or the heat, though they waited, too, no. What would end you, if you woke up out here, was the sound. Or rather, the absence of it. Out here, silence isn't peaceful, it isn't meditative. It isn't even restful. Silence, in the Wild West, was the loudest thing in the room. It filled the space between clinks of tin cups and the slow, deliberate chewing. It hovered behind the aching creak of wagon wheels as they dragged across stone. It loomed under every breath you took, reminding you how small you were in a land that didn't care. This wasn't the West of saloon piano jingles or triumphant heroes riding into sunsets. That's what the movies gave you. What the truth gave you, was mud. Flies. It gave you the wet slap of tobacco spit hitting the same patch of dirt outside a brothel door. It gave you coughing, deep, chest-rattling coughing that no one apologized for anymore. You wouldn't survive here, because surviving here wasn't an act of courage. It was an act of erosion. And the people? They were just as carved down as the land. Men with cracked hands and sun-warped faces, their eyes permanently squinted, but from too many years of staring into dust storms they couldn't avoid. Women with shoulders that didn't slump anymore, because slumping is something you stop doing once the weight becomes part of you. Children with eyes too old and feet. A town could vanish overnight. Not in violence, in disinterest. Some towns outlived the trains, others didn't even outlive the timber. And when the timber went, so did the people, as if the wood was the soul they were borrowing just to keep breathing. You wake up out here, in a narrow cot stuffed with straw that smells of sweat and mice. The boards above you moan with every shift of your weight, but they don't fall. That's something you learn early in the West, things moan and groan and bend. But they don't break. Not until they decide to. You wouldn't survive your first drink of water, not because it'd kill you, but because it wouldn't. It would remind you that this was normal. Water here is brown, lukewarm, and tastes faintly of iron. And that is the best-case scenario. Breakfast is bread. If you're lucky. Maybe some dried meat you can't quite chew. And then comes the walking. Everything is far. Everything. There are no sidewalks. There is no breeze. There is only you and the sound of your heartbeat in your ears, because the heat doesn't speak. It presses. No shade. No air. No sympathy. People didn't walk proud here. They walked careful. Because careful is what keeps your ankles unbroken in streets paved with loose stone and lies. Maybe you get to the general store. Maybe you notice the old man sitting on a barrel out front, chewing the same piece of leather he's been working on for 2 hours. He's not rude. He just doesn't have anything left to spend on small talk. His eyes aren't tired. They're just finished. Inside, the smell is worse than outside. Not stronger. Just more specific. Molded flour, damp rope. A jar of pickled eggs that expired 3 months ago, though no one told them. You want to ask for a glass of water, but something about the air here makes you forget your thirst. Or maybe it just makes you feel like asking for anything is a kind of offense. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West, not because the land would kill you, but because it would ignore you, and that, somehow, is worse. The fear in the West didn't come from bandits. It came from the slow realization that you could scream into the wind and it wouldn't even shift direction. That if you fell on the road and the sun baked your bones clean, the next traveler might step over you without breaking stride. Not because they didn't care, but because they couldn't afford to. Every kindness out here came with a cost. Every favor was counted, tabulated, stored in memory. The economy of mercy was strict, and deeply personal. You didn't give water to a stranger unless you were prepared to let them live in your story forever. The West didn't forgive memory. It branded it into everything: skin, names. A man might shoot you not for what you did, but because your face reminded him of someone who did. There's a reason they eye too long, not out of guilt. Out of superstition. Because when you stare too long in a place like this, it stares back. And when it does, it doesn't blink. Even the animals were quieter here. Horses didn't neigh, they huffed. Dogs barked once, maybe twice, then shut up like they remembered it wasn't safe. The birds, if you ever saw one, seemed like they were passing through by mistake. You don't get many dreams in the Wild West. But if you do, they're dry. They flake apart when you try to hold them. You wouldn't survive out here, because out here, surviving means accepting that nothing is coming. No cavalry, no closure, no moment of triumph, just the sound of leather tightening around under your heel as you start walking again, because standing still makes the silence louder. This isn't the Old West you think you know. This is the one that doesn't get told. The one with no gunfights, no glory, no grand finale. Just a sky so big it forgets you. And a land so old, it already has. The West didn't grow. It clawed. You look around and think you see buildings, roads, fences, but these weren't built. Not really, they were insisted upon, scraped into place by hands that bled and cracked, over and over, until the shape of something like civilization emerged. Not clean. Not strong. Just, stubborn. Wood came first. Always the wood. Timber was shipped in, or hacked down nearby, dragged by oxen who had no say in the matter. If the town was lucky, someone knew how to swing a hammer. If not, they'd use whatever they could, nails stolen off crates, wire repurposed from old traps to keep it from fraying. Foundations were shallow, sometimes barely there at all, because the deeper you dig in the West, the harder it gets to pretend you're welcome. No one lived here because they were supposed to. They lived here because they had nowhere else to be, and when that's your reason for staying, you don't plant deep. You just try not to get pulled out. You wouldn't survive your second hour, not because you'd be killed. Because you'd start to realize something you'd realize there is no rhythm. Back east, or wherever you came from, days had shape. The sun moved, people moved, bells rang, carriages, you could measure time with noise. Out here, time loses its posture. It slips. It's not even that things go slow, they go sideways. You look up and the sun hasn't moved. But the shadows have. People don't, they pause. They stand still for reasons that don't make sense. And when you ask why is that man just standing by the well, not moving, no one answers. Because the moment you ask that question, they start wondering if you're someone who needs watching. The West didn't have neighbors. It had witnesses. The man who sold you flour this morning might be the same one who finds your body in a ditch tomorrow. That's not drama, that's logistics. And every conversation here carries the same secret weight. What are you willing to do when the rules run out? They run out quickly, too. Lawmen were rare, good ones even rarer. Most were drunks, wore leftovers, or men who wore the badge as camouflage. A sheriff could be just. But he could never be both for long. Justice wasn't written, it was performed, sometimes, a nod. A look, a hand on a pistol. Other times it was Messier. You wouldn't see a hanging unless you were part of it. And even then, it wouldn't look like it does in stories. There's no crowd. No gallows, just a rope, a tree, and a few men who make sure no one talks about it afterward. You might think, this place needs rules. But the West already has one. Don't be the reason someone else doesn't sleep tonight. That's it. That's all. And even then, it's more of a request. So you walk, maybe out past the church, if there is one. The door's never locked, not because people are welcome, but because out here, you don't lock what you're willing to lose. Inside, it smells like cedar and rot even when no one's sitting in. There's no organ, just a few Bibles with pages missing, and a cracked glass window that lets in more heat than light. No one preaches unless someone dies, and even then, it's more of a story than a sermon. People here don't ask God for things, they apologize for surviving long enough to still need Him. You'd sit. Not out of reverence, out of fatigue. And that's when it might hit you, this strange stillness isn't calm, it's pressure, and the more time you spend in it, the more it feels like something's being asked of you. Not loudly. Not even clearly. Just, something in the air wants to know if you're here by choice. And if not, how long you're planning to pretend. Because the Wild West wasn't made for visitors. It wasn't made for anyone, really. It just was. It doesn't ask you to understand it. Just to endure it. Which is why no one talked much. Conversations were short, not because people were rude, but because words were expensive. Every sentence you said out loud, every name you shared, every story you offered, those were things that could be remembered. And memory, out here, is a loaded gun. The fewer people who know you, the safer you are. And the fewer people you know, the less it hurts. It happens all the time. One day, the man in the hat with the gold tooth is drinking beside you at the saloon. Next day, his horse comes back without him. Nobody asks questions. Somebody feeds the horse. The tooth, forgotten. You wouldn't survive here, because every part of you is still built for connection. For interpretation. For meaning. The West didn't have meaning. It had weather, and need. And silence. And if you tried to tell a story about it, it would listen, politely, maybe, but it would not answer. Because meaning is a kind of luxury. And out here, it's for salt, bullets, and boots that don't leak. You'd start to feel it by afternoon. The weight under your ribs. That strange sensation that you're not missing something, but that something is quietly removing itself from you. A soft, internal subtraction. You laugh less and more. You start to speak slower, not because you're adapting, but because it takes more effort to care how something sounds once it leaves your mouth. And at some point, somewhere between watching the sky turn the color of rust and chewing the same strip of beef for the 4th time, you'd understand. You're not afraid of dying out here. You're afraid of becoming out here. Because this land doesn't just want your labor. It doesn't want your story. It doesn't want your dreams. It wants your pace. It wants your breath, your posture, your rhythm. It wants you to move the way it moves, slow, without apology, without promise. And once you do, once you start to adjust, that's when it keeps you. Not with force, not with chains, with the echo of your own footsteps, and the knowledge that no one is coming to call you back. You keep walking, because that's the one thing that makes sense. You don't know where you're going. Doesn't matter, no one in the West ever really did. Directions here are more about feeling than distance. A fence becomes a landmark. A tree with a crooked limb becomes a compass. And when those fail, you follow ruts in the ground, the worn tracks left by someone else who didn't know where they were going either. That's the only map that matters out here, memory. Not yours, someone else's. The land doesn't keep records. The people do. And when they're gone, so are the instructions. There's no welcome committee. No signs, no answers, just a road that narrows the longer you stay on it, and a sky that keeps watching. You pass a farmhouse, barely standing. Roof bowed. One shutter missing, the other hanging like a loose tooth. No smoke from the chimney. No sound from inside. But a single boot sits on the porch rail, facing west. That's not an accident. Out here, everything means something, but nothing gets explained. A boot on the rail means someone left, and didn't plan to return. It's not a threat. It's a warning. A memory with sharp edges. You don't knock, you don't even slow down. Instinct tells you, whatever lives inside silence that deep, doesn't want to be disturbed. There's no danger, just wait. And that's the difference. You don't die in the West from what you see. You die from what you carry too long. By midday, your mouth tastes like copper. Your shirt clings to your back in places you didn't know sweat could reach. The heat doesn't rise, it sinks. It settles into your bones and waits. But even now, you haven't seen what the West really is. Not yet. That comes when you step into town and enter its lungs, the general store, the post office, and the saloon. 3 organs keeping the corpse of civilization from going completely still. They all look the same. Wood, dust, dim windows that barely hold in the light. But each breathes differently. The general store is quiet, transactional. You ask, you pay, you leave. No one lingers unless they're lonely enough to mistake inventory for company. The post office is quieter. Letters arrive late, or not at all. You don't ask why. Sometimes they're opened before you get them. Sometimes they're damp, like they've been wept on. You still read them. even if they're addressed to someone else. Because words, real words, are rare here. Not the ones shouted across fields but words chosen carefully, folded, sealed, and trusted to travel. That's sacred, even when it's stolen. And then there's the saloon. The only place where sound pretends to stretch its limbs. You step through swinging doors that haven't swung properly in years. Inside, light doesn't pour. It drips, slow, weak, like a vein that's been tapped too many times. There's a piano in the corner, keys missing, strings rusted. No one plays it, but no one moves it either. Like an altar to the idea of music. Men sit scattered, not gathered. Not social. Just, placed. Like furniture with opinions. A bartender cleans a glass that won't get cleaner, not because it's habit, but because doing anything is better than remembering the things you can't fix. You sit. You order. He pours. Whiskey. It burns, not in the way liquor's supposed to, but in the way rust might, if it had a flavor. You drink anyway. Because out here, thirst is a debt you're always paying off in small sips. You wouldn't survive this place, because the rules in absence. No eye contact longer than 3 seconds. No reaching without warning. No asking where someone's from unless you're ready to bury that knowledge. Everything has a cost. A drink costs a coin. A second glance might cost your name. A rumor, if you pass it along, might cost your teeth. But the highest price of all, kindness. Because nothing here is more suspicious than an act with no visible motive. If someone hands you water without charge, you check the color. If someone invites you to dinner, you count how many chairs are set. If someone smiles, you count your bullets. And if a stranger says they're just passing through, you ask what they're running from. Not out loud. Just in the way you angle your body, just in the way your hand stays near your belt. Out here, questions are made of posture. The bartender speaks, not a greeting. A name. Not yours, someone else's. He says it slow, like it's been caught in his throat all day. You don't know the name. But someone behind you does. You hear the scrape of a chair. Not fast. Not loud. Just enough to interrupt the music that isn't playing. Then nothing. That's the sound of consequences being measured. You stare at your drink. The glass is cloudy. The liquid doesn't ripple. Even the dust to float. You think, what happens now? Nothing. That's what happens most of the time in the Wild West. Not justice, not action. Just silence heavy enough to crush intent before it becomes decision. You wouldn't survive because you still believe in outcomes. Out here, belief is something you bleed out of slowly. Later, when the sun angles low and the air tastes like iron and ash, you walk behind the saloon. The ground is different back here, soft. You realize you're standing in a graveyard no one bothered to name. Wooden markers lean like drunks. Some have initials. Most don't. One is marked with a single word, sorry. That's all it says, just sorry. No name, no date. No explanation. You stare at it longer than you should. Because in that word is something you recognize. Remorse without, out here, sorry doesn't mean, I wish I hadn't. It means, I know it won't matter. The sky changes, not color, texture. You wouldn't notice it unless you've been here long enough to feel the difference between shade and surrender. Clouds don't form here, they arrive. Like regrets, slow. Inevitable. The wind shifts once, carries the smell of something distant. Burning, maybe. Or rain pretending it knows how to fall. You stop walking. Because for the first time since you woke up in this place, you understand. You're not in a town. You're inside a warning. Built from splinters, staffed by ghosts, powered by habits no one remembers choosing. And all of it waits, for nothing. That's the secret, isn't it? The Wild West didn't end. It just got tired of being watched. By your third hour, you've stopped asking questions, not out loud, not even inside your own head. The air teaches you something. Slowly, firmly. With the same patience that made canyons out of rock. Out here, questions aren't doors, they're cracks. And every crack lets something in. So you learn to seal yourself. Your face loses its softness first. The muscles behind your eyes pull tight. Not in anger, not fear. Just adjustment. Then your jaw finds a slower rhythm, one that doesn't suggest you have anything to say. After that, your shoulders fold in, not from weight, but from awareness. The less space you take, the less space you owe. And finally, your name stops fitting in your mouth, not because you've forgotten it, but because saying it here would sound like arrogance. You wouldn't survive a day in the West, because you still carry your identity like something owed to you. Like it has value just for existing. But out here, names are tools. They build things, buy things, betray things. And a tool left out in the sun too long turns dangerous. People in the West don't introduce themselves, they're introduced. By what they've done, by what they haven't done, by what they're rumored to have thought once on a winter morning back in '82, standing beside a broken fence, holding a shovel like it was deciding something. That's how stories begin here. Without details. Without proof, just the weight of a moment stretched across a decade. You walk past a stable. The horses don't look at you. That's how you know you're still a stranger. Animals here are better judges than any man behind a badge. They don't sniff for fear. They sniff for noise, not the kind you make with your mouth, but the kind you make by existing in the wrong rhythm. And you're still loud. Inside. You can feel it. The hum behind your ribs. The slow panic breath of a person not meant to be watched by this much empty land. The stable hand is asleep, or pretending to be. His boots are off, and one foot is wrapped in a cloth soaked dark red. You could ask what happened. You don't. You don't need to. In the West, suffering is not a conversation. It's a currency, and asking about pain is like asking how much money someone lost. There's no way to do it politely. You notice something strange. None of the horses have names on their stalls. Just marks, lines, shapes carved into the wood. One looks like a broken arrow. Another is a circle with a notch on top. One is just a deep gouge, almost accidental, as if someone stabbed the plank with a nail and decided that would do. You realize, naming things makes them fragile. You name a horse, and then you can miss it. You name a place, and then you have to defend it. You name yourself, and then you have to become it. Out here, everything fights becoming. Even memory. There's a man outside the blacksmith's, sitting, not working. His hands are blackened. Not from soot, but from living too close to metal that never cools. He's watching something you can't see. You glance. He doesn't glance back. That's the exchange. You both acknowledge the other's presence by not acknowledging it. That's respect, in its cleanest form. He shifts. One knee pops. He doesn't flinch. Pain, in the West, is like punctuation. It marks the end of something, never the beginning. His forge isn't lit. No smoke. Just tools scattered like bones on the table beside him. Hammers, files, tongs. Each one covered in the fine gray ash of yesterday's heat. You think, he hasn't worked today, but you're wrong. He's working now. Because sometimes in the West, the work is just waiting. Not passive. Not lazy, still. Stillness is what separates the living from the buried. There's a child nearby. You hear her before you see, humming, off-key, behind a wall for her to see over. The sound is small, distant, like it's already being forgotten as it leaves her throat. You turn the corner. There she is, sitting in the dirt, drawing circles with a stick. She looks at you the way animals do, quick, full, then done. She doesn't smile, but she doesn't run. That's the best you're going to get out here. She points to the ground beside her, doesn't say anything. Just a small gesture, sharp and simple. You hesitate. Then sit. The dirt is warm. Coarse, alive in the way dry things can be, by refusing to move unless forced. She draws another circle. Inside it, she adds 2 dots and a line. A face. Then she draws a smaller one beside it. And another, each less precise, less human. You recognize the pattern, something becoming less and less itself. You don't ask what it means. She wouldn't answer, not because she's a child, but because out here, meaning is private. And you haven't earned any. The child's mother, maybe, appears in the doorway, wipes her hands on her apron. Doesn't call, just stands. The girl looks once, then rises. No words, just dust, falling off her dress as she walks away. She forgets the stick. You leave it. Because you understand, in a way, that the moment you pick it up, the West will start drawing you. Evening doesn't fall in the West. It thickens. The light dims not by sunfall, but by suggestion. Colors lose confidence. Shadows stretch until they become roads, and the roads begin to feel like decisions made long ago by people you'll never meet. You hear a coyote in the distance, not a howl. A cough, dry, like it's been trying to clear its throat for a century. There are no predators in the West. Only presences, some with claws, most without. The air cools, your sweat begins to dry. That's when the real, not the kind that makes you sleep. The kind that makes you stare, at nothing, at everything. At the sky, which no longer feels vast, but indifferent. You'd think silence means peace, but sometimes, it's what's left when the story has nothing human left to say. And this land? It ran out of humanity long before it ran out of space. Night in the West does not descend. It waits. You don't see it approach like some cloaked figure on the horizon. It doesn't spill over the hills or paint the town with shadow. Instead, it seeps, from under doors, from between floorboards, from inside your own chest. The darkness out here has no edges. It does not announce itself with moonlight or stars. It simply begins to exist, and you are expected to adjust. Lanterns flicker on one by one, each flame small and careful, like a secret shared only among the unwilling. The windows they live behind glow amber, but faint, not enough to light anything fully, only enough to remind you where the walls are. Because in the West, at night, knowing where the walls are can mean the difference between staying and vanishing. You wouldn't survive this hour, not because of who might come for you, but because of who won't. You step back into the saloon, and it's different now. Not louder, not busier, just tighter. The air feels used. Like breath has cycled through too many lungs, like memory is being exhaled instead of smoke. The bartender nods, not to you. Just, into the room. It's a signal. You don't know what it means. A man at the far table has begun to play with a deck of cards. Not shuffle. Not deep. Just turn them over, one at a time, placing them in a slow pattern that seems familiar but ends in nonsense. You watch. He doesn't look up. No one joins him. Out here, gambling it's about remembering. Remembering what it feels like to want something you might not get. The worst part. He doesn't even look like he's playing. He looks like he's apologizing. You sit, not at the bar, just along the wall. The floor is sticky. The chair leans slightly left. The wall behind you smells of old tobacco and newer, and then it happens. Not loudly, not obviously. Just enough. The man beside you, gray coat, boots that don't match, says a name. Not yours, but it lands like a key being placed in a lock you didn't know was there. He doesn't turn to face you, doesn't even sip his drink, just speaks, calm and deliberate. Heard about a man once, got dragged 5 miles by his own horse, rope around his boot. Couldn't get free, dust tore his eyes out before the rocks took his teeth. Pause, no expression. No point being made. Just, a story. You don't reply. That's the rule. Out here, stories aren't conversations, they're tests. Each one is a match struck in a dark room to see what flickers back. Air ahead. Eventually, the man stands, boots creak. Wood groans. And then he leaves, not through the door, through the back. You hear the latch, hear it settle. And then he's gone. You feel something in your chest, not fear, recognition. You've just been measured. And somehow, you passed. The hours stretch. No clocks tick here, not because they don't exist, but because they aren't trusted. Time is counted in other ways, the length of a matchstick burned down. The cooling of coffee gone, the sound of the same footstep crossing the same board, again and again, without urgency. Eventually, you leave, not because you're tired, but because the room starts to lean, as if staying longer might permanently. Outside, the world has shrunk. Night does that. It turns the West into something more interior. You don't see the land anymore, you feel it. The crunch of gravel underfoot, the way the wind speaks in half-syllables, the way each window you pass seems less like a home and more like a held breath. And above it all, the stars. Not twinkling. Watching. There are more stars here than you knew existed. But they don't seem scattered, they seem placed. As if someone arranged them with purpose, but left before the pattern could be explained. You stop walking. Because one of the stars moved. No sound. No light trail. Just motion. Intentional, then nothing. Maybe it was your eye. Maybe it wasn't. You keep walking. Because you've learned, out here, you don't chase strange, you survive it. You reach the edge of town. A fence stands crooked, more suggestion than barrier. Beyond it, a field. Empty. But not clean. You walk it anyway. Because some part of you is still trying to understand something no one asked you to. The grass is short. Brittle, snaps under your boots. There's something in the middle of the field. A shape in the dark. You approach slowly. Not out of fear, out of invitation. It's a cart. Broken. 2 wheels collapsed. One still attached but warped like a memory bent the wrong way. No horse, no harness, just the shell of something meant to carry weight. You kneel, your hand brushes the wood. It's soft. Not with rot, with use. The grooves are too specific, not random. They mark hands, heavy hands. And more than once, blood. But that's not what stops you, it's what's underneath. Into the side, almost invisible now. We tried. That's all. Not a name. Not a plea. Just a past tense verb and the silence that follows it. You sit beside the cart, and for the first time since arriving, you realize something most never admit. The West wasn't a place people conquered. It was a place they confessed. And this shattered cart, this sentence half swallowed by wind, isn't just it's a monument to effort without reward. To movement to stories that end not with death, but with disappearance. Something in the wind changes, colder, not cruel. Just honest. You stand. Not because you're finished. Because the land has allowed you to. You don't belong here, but for a moment, it let you pretend you did. You walk back toward town. The stars rearrange themselves behind you. And the darkness no longer feels empty. It feels held by something old. By something vast. By something that remembers, even when no one else does. By morning, the town feels smaller. Not physically. Not even, but emotionally, as if some thread its shape, pulling everything inward. Streets you walked yesterday now feel like hallways. Buildings lean slightly closer. Shadows fall at angles that suggest scrutiny. You woke with dirt in your teeth. You don't remember lying down. The floor beneath you wasn't a bed, or even a cot, just boards, dry and dusty, each groove whispering someone else's sleep. And you'd think that would unsettle you. But the strangest part is, it didn't. Because in the West, comfort is not softness, it's persistence. If something held you long enough to wake up in it, that's comfort. So you stand. Slowly. Joints clicking like dice in a tin cup. And you open the door not with urgency, but with permission. Outside, the morning is gray. Not cloudy. Not foggy. Just colorless, like the world hasn't yet decided how real it wants to be. Across the way, a man is digging. He doesn't look up. His shovel moves in a rhythm that suggests this isn't his first. Or his 100th. You don't ask what he's burying, because in the West, that question has 3 answers. A body. A secret. A past life. And most times, it's all 3. The hole isn't deep. That's how you know it's fresh. Deep graves take effort, and effort here is rationed like water. You watch for a minute too long. The man notices. Not with his face, but with his shoulders. They straighten, not in pride, not in anger, but in that quiet readiness men get when they think they may need to defend something unspoken. You nod. He does not nod back. But his shoulders loosen. That's the closest you'll ever get to a handshake in this part of the world. Further down the path, you pass a signpost with no sign. Just a post, splintered. Weather-worn, standing out of the earth like a tooth from a jaw that's forgotten how to chew. At its base, a single boot. Again. Facing south this time, you start to wonder if that's the direction people choose to vanish in. You find the well by sound, not sight. Not the sound of water, the sound of absence. Wells in the west don't gurgle, they hold. The bucket is tied with rope that looks like it's older than your memories. Frayed. Hardened with the grease of 100 hands. You lower it. It hits nothing or more, still nothing. Finally, it finds water, but not clean. It smells of metal. Old coins, forgotten blood. You drink anyway. Because thirst doesn't ask for clarity, and neither does this place. There's a woman sitting outside the seamstress's place, threading a needle. Not sewing. Not working. Just threading, again. And again. Each time, the same motion. Like a lesson it keeps refusing to learn. She doesn't smile. But she speaks, just one line. You know what they used to do when someone went bad out here. You wait. Pause because she expects an answer. She pauses because it's part of the story. They buried M standing up. Fasten west. So the sun would never have to look M in the eye. Silence. Then she returns to her fretting. Again. You want to ask if it's true. But you know already, the truth in this place isn't measured by what happened. It's measured by how long the story survives. You move on. Past doors half open. Past faces barely glimpsed. Past conversations whispered through walls made of wood and war. And eventually, you find the church. Again. Only this time, you go inside. It's darker than it should be. Windows thick with grime. Heavy with the weight of every unanswered prayer. You take a seat near the back. The pew groans beneath you, as if recognizing a new way. Up front, the pulpit stands up, but the Bible is open. Not in welcome. In resignation. The pages don't flutter, they cling. Moisture, or memory, you look at the passage. But the words blur, not from light. From disuse. In the West, even God is slow to speak. There's a small box beneath the altar, unmarked. You don't touch it. Not because you're afraid of what's inside. But because you're afraid of what isn't. A box like that doesn't hold money. Or relics. It holds promises no one wants to break. The kind made under duress. The kind made when the wind outside was screaming and the nails in the walls were pulling loose. You sit longer than you meant to. Time passes in dust. Not in minutes, not in motion. Just in the way the air settles when no one wants to speak first. And then, from behind you, a voice. He's not in there. You turn. An old man. Eyes pale as sky, clothes that once had shape. He walks with the hesitation of someone who's been surprised by gravity too many times. You don't reply. He continues. No one is. Not anymore. Not him. Not the ones who begged. Not the ones who deserved. He leans on the end of your pew. Funny thing about churches out here, you wait. He smiles. Not warm. Not cruel. Just dry. They're not places of salvation. Pause. They're shelters. For the silence. He taps the wood once. A hollow thud. Some nights, it gets too loud. And the only way to quiet it, is to let it echo in here. Bounce around a while. Wear itself out. You nod. He walks away. No footsteps. Just the sound of a door that wasn't there before, opening. Then closing. And then, the silence again. Outside, the wind has changed. Not speed. Tone. You feel it in your teeth. A shift. Not a threat. Not a warning. But a suggestion, that something is moving underground. Not water, history, and you realize, that's what this place is full of. Not ghosts, not sinners. Not forgotten names, but burials, of ideas, of truths, of people who stood too long in one spot and sank into the soil like fence posts with no fence left to guard. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West. Not because of what it demands, but because of what it remembers. And eventually, you'll leave something behind too. Maybe a boot. Maybe a breath. Maybe your name, whispered once and left in the church for the silence to polish down to nothing. And someone else will walk past, someone like you. And they'll see that box under the altar, and they'll feel the weight of something that was never opened, never broken, never burned. Just left. And they'll understand. Out here, the deepest graves are the ones no one dug. There are no endings in the West. Only pauses. That's why stories feel different here. They're not told to resolve. They're told to endure, to smolder, like coals left under ash, not for warmth, but for remembrance. You feel that now, walking past a blackened tree stump whirled into it. No house nearby. No trail. Just the symbol, rusted iron, split wood, and a kind of stillness that smells like old hope. Someone tried to claim this spot, tried to bend the land around their need. And lost. And the horseshoe stayed behind like a laugh too dry to echo. You hear footsteps behind you. Not fast. Measured. Rhythmic. The sound of someone who doesn't hurry for anything short of fire. You don't turn around. Because you're learning. In the West, looking back is its own invitation. So you wait. Let the sound approach. Let the air thicken. Let the footsteps stop, just short of presence. And when you finally glance, there's no one there. Just dust, stirred into patterns too brief to keep. You don't smile. You don't shiver. You just walk on. Because out here, being followed isn't always about someone. Sometimes, it's just the land, making sure you still mean it. At the edge of town, there's a place where the buildings give up. They don't end, they just fade. Shacks that never became homes. Half fences that protected. A bucket, upside down, filled with cracked marbles. You step into this space like you'd step into someone else's grief. Soft. Slow. Respectful of things unsaid. A sign creaks overhead, but it's blank. Whatever name this place once had, it lost it the honest way, through disuse. You enter a building that might have once been a school. The floor sags. The door sighs. There's a chalkboard in the back with only one word left on it. Return. Underlined once, then again, then carved into the wood frame, as if someone tried to make the word permanent before they realized permanence doesn't hold in a place like this. A desk remains, not the teacher's, a child's, smaller than it should be. Tilted slightly, drawer missing. Inside the open cavity, a dried flower, pressed. Preserved, not beautiful, but refused. Refused to crumble. Refused to refused to stop meaning something. You don't touch it. But you remember its shape. Because the West is made of things like that. Not symbols. Not legends, just forgotten choices left in fragile containers. Later, you pass a man carving a saddle. He sits in the doorway of a barn that's more hole than shelter. He doesn't speak, but you can tell, by the way he works the leather, that he isn't making it for a. The curves are wrong, the shape too narrow. It's a ritual, not a craft. Each slice of his, but not mourning. Maintenance. There are two kinds of sadness in the West. The kind that weeps, and the kind that sharpens its tools and keeps going. You nod to him. He doesn't nod back. But his knife pauses, and that's enough. By noon, the sun is a pale fist above you. Not hot, just unrelenting. You stop beside a tree that isn't a tree anymore, just a shape, gray and leafless, etched into the sky like something burned its silhouette into memory. There's a man sitting beneath it. Coat too clean, too still. He has that look, not of danger, not of welcome. The look of someone who hasn't decided yet what he's going to be in your story. He speaks without greeting. You know what the worst part of dying out here is? You don't answer. He nods, appreciates the silence. He continues. It's not the hurt. Not the thirst. Not even the weight. It's back at the sky. It's that you start to feel like you never existed in the first place. Like the land already forgot you while you were still breathing. Pause. The wind don't carry your name. The ground don't keep your shape. Even the buzzards fly past like they're late for something more important. Another pause, then. And if someone does remember you, it ain't the way you wanted. He closes his eyes, and you feel the line between him and the tree, like he's becoming part of it. Not decaying, just fading. You walk away. Not because you're afraid. Because staying might mean agreeing. You pass a clothesline with nothing on it but a single red thread, tied at both ends, dancing in the wind. It's not enough to make a flag. Not enough to make a statement. Just enough to say, something used to be here, and maybe still is. The thread hums against the air, taut and deliberate. Like it's holding up more than it should. Like it's waiting for the rest of the garment to return. You don't touch it. Because some boundaries are invisible until you cross them. And this one feels watched. You hear a bell. Not a church bell. Not loud. Just a soft clang, like metal on bone. You follow the sound. To a hill, at the top, a small graveyard. 12 markers. 11 names, the 12th is blank, carved, but never written in. The stone is cracked, as if something tried to write itself there, and couldn't. A man stands nearby, hat off, eyes closed, his lips are moving, but no sound escapes. You don't approach, because grief here is active. It's not processed. It's lived in, stoked. Allowed to smolder. You wait at the bottom of the hill. Eventually, the man walks down. Passes you. Says nothing. But his shoulder brushes yours, and you feel it. He didn't go up there to mourn. He went up there to apologize. You wouldn't survive this part of the West. Because this is where the wind changes shape. Where names lose weight. Where memory takes on mass. The people who live out here don't speak of the past. They host it. They carry it like a second spine, not visible, but obvious in the way they move. And when they look at you, they're not seeing who you are. They're seeing who you'd become if you stayed. And whether this land would keep you. Or consume you. Or forget you while you're still standing here. The sky darkens, not from clouds. Just fatigue, and you realize, all at once, with a kind of slow dread that isn't sharp but hollow. The West doesn't sleep. It remembers in silence, and silence, out here, is not the absence of sound. It's the presence of everything else, the promises, the failures, the men buried standing up. The women who sewed wounds shut with candlelight. The children who vanished into the hills one morning and came back with different eyes. All of it still here, still watching, still waiting. You take one last look at the horizon. There's no sunset. Just a gradual unmaking of the light. And above it, the sky. Open. Vast. Unjudging. And wide awake. Night has come again. But not like it did before, this time bearing your shape. It follows you. Moves when you move. Stands behind you while you drink from a chipped tin bowl when asked your name. Sits beside you in the dark, pressing its shoulder to yours, whispering things not with words, but with memory. Not yours, the town's, because everything here remembers something. Even the air, especially the air. You step outside, and it's darker than it should be. Not because there's no moon, there is, barely, a fingernail of white. But because the land below it refuses to reflect. The dust eats the light, the ground absorbs it like an old debt. Even the windows don't shine. They hold their light in. Like a secret they're ashamed of. There's a well behind the general store, deeper than the other one. Covered by a plank of wood that hasn't been moved in years, but tonight, it's gone. And someone's down there, you don't see them. You hear them. Not speaking. Not crying. Just breathing, slow, controlled, like they've been down there long enough to get used to it. You kneel beside the hole, unsure why. The air that rises from the well smells of rust, rope, and something too clean to be trusted. And then, a voice. You ever think about how long a person can fall before they stop noticing? Not loud. Not angry. Just tired. You don't answer, because deep down, you're not sure if the voice is meant for you, or if you're just overhearing a conversation between gravity and regret. You walk away. But the sound follows. Not the voice, the breathing. Like the land has learned how to inhale. There's a shack outside town. One room, roof caved in. Locals don't mention it. No one repairs it. And when kids get too close, their parents yell, but not loudly. Just sharply enough to remind them that silence isn't always safety. You approach it now. The door isn't open. It's missing. Inside, a single chair, still upright. Every other piece of furniture is ash, but the chair has no dust. Like someone still sits there. Like someone will. On the floor, a circle of white stones, perfectly placed. Too perfect. You step around it. Because something in you understands, this isn't decoration. It's a boundary, and whatever it's holding in, doesn't mind waiting. Back in town, the saloon has emptied. Chairs turned over. Cups abandoned mid-drink. The piano lid is closed. For the first time, it feels like a place that remembers being loud, and the absence of that sound is louder than any scream. Behind the bar, a note. Scrawled in charcoal on the back of a label torn from a whiskey bottle, the dogs won't stop staring at the mine. If they go down there, I won't stop them this time. No name. No date. Just that. You turn it over. Nothing. You pocket it anyway. Because out here, the only truth you can own is the kind you carry. The mine sits in the hills. You've seen it from afar, nothing but a black mouth with no teeth. But tonight, it feels closer, like it moved. You hike. Each step up the trail feels heavier than it should. Like your boots are filling with memory. The entrance is caved partially. Not sealed, just discouraged. A timber crossbeam still stands, cracked down the middle like it wants to apologize but doesn't know how. And beside it, fresh prints in the dirt. Dog tracks, multiple, leading in. None coming out. You step to the edge, smell the air. It smells wrong. Not rot. Not gas, something older, the scent of forgotten decisions. And then, from inside the shaft, you hear whimpering. Not animal, human. But not desperate. Just lost. Like someone's been wandering in there for so long, they forgot how to ask for help. You step back. You're not ready to know who that is, or who they used to be. At the edge of the mine, a bone. White, half buried in dust. Not a full skeleton. Not part of a known pattern. Just a piece, another bone, then another, but they're not together. They're scattered, like something wanted to forget where the rest of them were. You stand slowly, and for the first time, you say something out loud. Who did this? Not expecting an answer, and yet, the wind stops, only for a second. Just long enough to make you feel watched. You return to town as the sky begins to fade again. That's what it does. It doesn't brighten. It forgets its darkness. The stars don't disappear. They just become shy. And as you pass the church, you see something you hadn't noticed before. A name carved into the outside wall, so low to the ground it would have been written by someone sitting. Or kneeling. M.E. 2 letters. Not enough to identify. Just enough to be remembered. You run your hand over the carving. It's deep. Done with purpose. You wonder what it stood for. Maybe a name, maybe a promise, maybe just, mine ended. Back in your room, there's dust on. You didn't leave the window open. The door was shut. But the dust is there, and something's different. You check your boots. They're clean, too clean. Like someone wiped them, like someone expected you to keep walking, and then you see it. A coin, placed on your nightstand. One side scratched beyond recognition. The other side blank. You pick it up. It's worn. And in that moment, you understand, someone out here is keeping count. Not of debts, not of sins, of survivals, and tonight, for now. You've been marked, not as one of them, but as someone who didn't break. Not yet. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West, because the day never really ends. It just splits into smaller pieces, some loud, some quiet, some made of bones that never bleached, and some made of chairs no one dares to sit in. And all of them waiting for someone to name them, so they can finally sleep. Dawn, this time, arrives like a secret told by mistake. The sky doesn't glow. It just fades less, like light changed its mind halfway down the mountain. There's no rooster, no signal, no church bell calling people to wake and confess. The West doesn't beg the day to begin, and so do the people. You step outside and the world feels half-loaded. Like someone started building reality and gave up just before painting the details. Nothing feels finished. The wood on the porch is soft from memory, not rot. The street still holds last night's footprints, and the wind moves only in straight lines, as if avoiding something. You notice it then. The town is not just empty. Withholding, like a child holding its breath. There's a child sitting by the trough, same one as before. No, this one has different eyes, lighter, less full, as if what lived behind them is still deciding whether it wants to stay. She hums a song that doesn't have a melody. Just the sound of stone on stone. You nod to her. She doesn't stop. Doesn't look up. But beside her, on the ground, are shapes, small stones arranged in a pattern, circles inside squares, a loop of string pulled tight around a cluster of them, like a border drawn not with ink, but with intent. You ask, softly, what's it mean? She doesn't answer. She just moves one stone out of the circle, and looks up. Her voice, when it comes, is the same color as the sky. He's not coming back. No explanation. You don't ask who. You nod. Because you understand, in the West, the name isn't the part that matters. It's the leaving. You head toward the edge of town, past the general store, past the hollow place where the post office used to be before it collapsed inward from weather or shame. There's a fence you hadn't seen before, short, crooked, painted white, but just once. Its boards are held together by twine and hope. Inside, rows of boots, not worn, not buried, just placed. Pairs, some filled with dirt, some with straw, one with a bird's nest in the heel. You pause. It looks like a graveyard. But it isn't. This is intention. Not memory. A sign dangles from the top rail. Charcoal scrawl, still coming home. No names, no dates, just that. You step away, careful not to disturb the order, because even broken things have rituals. You find the man with the broken nose behind the old blacksmith's. He's cleaning a rifle that hasn't been fired in years, but he speaks, not to you. Just into the day. Used to be a man could shoot a coyote and feel like he was doing something right. He spits. Now the coyotes don't even run. Just stay, like they're waiting for the rest of us to catch up. You ask if the rifle still works. He shrugs. Doesn't matter. Another pause. Out here, the point ain't to fire. It's to remind you still might. He sets it down, barrel pointed, as if apologizing. You leave before the silence gets heavy. Because sometimes, silence out here isn't absence, it's ammunition. Further down the road, the undertaker's door is open. That's unusual. Death in the West is a private event. Not because people are scared of it, but because it's predictable. You walk in. No one greets you. The room smells of cedar and regret. A single coffin rests on sawhorses in the center of the room. Not closed. Not padded. Just pine boards, nailed without ceremony. Inside, a mirror, not large. Cracked, facing upward. You look in. And for a moment, just a moment, you see someone else. Not a stranger, not someone almost you. But not broken the same way, someone who stayed. You blink. It's just a mirror again. But the feeling lingers, that maybe the West doesn't take you all at once. Maybe it takes versions, keeps them, stores them. Leaves them in boxes like this one, waiting for you to walk past and recognize what you could have been if you gave in. You step back, and the mirror rattles, like it agrees. Outside, a man is building a ladder. No house nearby. No tree, no reason. Just a ladder, each rung carved with numbers, not in order. He doesn't explain. But on the 5th rung down, you see the word, listen. And below it, on the 7th, stay low. The rest are blank. You want to ask if it's meant to go up or down. But you already know. In the West, you don't climb to escape. You climb to see. And then you decide whether it was worth it. The church is empty. But the door is open wide. Inside, a new line on the blackboard. He never wanted to be worshipped. Just remembered, the chalk is fresh. You pick it up. Underneath the message, you write. Is that the same thing? You leave the not in case someone answers. But in case someone else needs to ask. Outside, the dust picks up. Just slightly, the kind of breeze that tells you something's about to happen, but refuses to say what. And then the wind speaks again. This time with a sound. A name. Not spoken aloud. Breathed, it curls behind your ears, dry and familiar. You don't remember it. But your body does. Your shoulders stiffen. Your legs plant. Because out here, when the wind says your name, it doesn't mean you're being called. It means you're being chosen. You sit on the porch of an abandoned house, watching the sky try to forgive itself for the things it allowed. And somewhere deep in the ribs of the hills, something moves. Not fast. Not violent. Just real. And for the first time, you don't wonder if you'll survive. You wonder, who will remember that you did? Because the West doesn't mourn the fallen. It mourns the invisible, the ones who almost spoke. Almost stayed. Almost changed something. But didn't, and left behind a pair of boots and a whisper. Nothing more, nothing less, just enough to be part of the dust that teaches someone else how to walk. The house you sit in front of isn't abandoned. Not really. In the West, nothing is ever truly empty. Not a room. Not a body. Not a silence. Everything still holds the weight of what it once heard. And this house has heard too much. The boards beneath your boots aren't. Each one bends like it's deciding whether to hold you or remember the last soul. The window beside you is broken, but not shattered. A single pane, cracked like a split tooth, as if it tried to bite the wind and lost. You stand. The door is half ajar, not open. Unsettled. There's a difference. Inside, the air is colder than it should be. Not from weather, from avoidance. Like even heat won't settle in this place. The room is one big square, empty except for a table in the center, and one upright, one on its side, one facing the wrong way. You don't touch them. Instead, you notice the walls. They're marked. Not scratched, not painted. Etched, lines, circles, some shallow, some deep. You run your fingers along the grooves and realize, they're notes, not music, not writing. Measurements, each mark catalogs a sound. You press your ear to the wood. And there it is, faint. But present. A knock, then another, then breathing, slow. Rhythmic, the kind of breath that doesn't belong. You step back, and the wall keeps breathing without you. There's a drawer in the table. You open it. Inside, a small cloth bundle. You unwrap it. A spoon, worn smooth by fingers that held it too tightly for too long. On the handle, carved with something too dull to be precise. Don't feed what waits. You freeze, not from fear, from recognition. Because deep in your chest, something agrees. Something that hasn't spoken since you got here. You wrap the spoon again and leave it. Because taking it would mean knowing what it fed. And you're not ready to admit how much of you is already hungry. Outside, the wind's changed again. This time it hums. Not a tune. Not a warning. Just presence, like it's noticed you. Like it's circling. You walk toward the dry streambed on the east side of town. It hasn't held water in years, maybe decades, but the rocks are still smooth, still placed as if the river never left, just paused. You kneel, touch the dust where water should be. It's cool. Not cold, just listening. And in that moment, you understand, this isn't a riverbed. It's a message, written in a language only movement can speak. And right now, it's waiting for someone to respond. You don't. Because whatever it's asking longer than further down the path is against the horizon. Its roof bows inward like it's tired of protecting what no longer matters. You open the door with both hands, not out of effort. Out of respect, because barns in the West aren't storage, they're confessions. Inside, straw drapes the floor like a sleeping animal. Tools hang in patterns that make more sense the longer you stare at them. And in the back, covered by a tarp. A mirror, tall. Narrow. Unbroken. You hesitate. But you lift and the reflection you see, isn't alone. Behind you, not touching you, not speaking, stands a woman, hair braided. Hands still. Eyes, closed. Not peacefully, just tightly, like they remember something too vivid to risk seeing again. You spin. No one there, the mirror is blank. Your reflection returned. But for a second, you saw it. The West doesn't just remember people. It stores them. In glass, in breath, in rooms that sag with weight no nails can carry. And you're starting to realize, maybe you're already being stored. Back in town, the air has shifted. People you hadn't seen before are visible now. One rocking on a porch, head tilted just far enough to seem unnatural. One sweeping a floor that has no dust. One standing in the street, staring at the sky like it owes him an apology. None of them speak. But they know you. Not personally. Existentially, they know what you walked past. What you didn't touch. What you almost asked. And they're deciding. Not whether to let you stay. Whether to let you leave as yourself. You duck into the barber's shop. The bell above the door doesn't ring. It just doesn't care. Inside, 2 chairs, one clean. One, stained. You don't sit. But on the mirror, written in soap. They buried him talking. Just that. You wipe it away without thinking. Underneath, a second message, fainter. He never stopped. The cloth in your hand begins to tremble. Not from movement, from resistance. You let it fall, because some words, once uncovered, don't like being touched again. By late afternoon, you stop walking. Because you notice the patterns. Every place you go has someone waiting. Not visibly. But architecturally, the chair that faces no one. The plate set for no guest. The door left ajar, not from carelessness, but invitation. This town wasn't built to shelter, it was built to observe, and you've wandered long enough to trigger its attention. You feel it now. Not dread. Not fear, just that slowing. Like your name is being spoken by something without a mouth, and the sky darkens, not from time, but from intention. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West, because the day doesn't end here. It folds, it curls inward, like parchment scorched from the center, and you are written on that page. A name without ink. A shape without permanence, a weight among other weights, waiting to be remembered, or released. Because the West doesn't bury everyone. Some people, it keeps awake, keeps listening for them. In floorboards, in mirrors, in wells. In walls, and if you stay too long, it starts to write you in. Not violently, not quickly. Just enough to make the silence say your name, even after you're gone. You wake before you open your eyes. It's that kind of morning, one where your breath arrives slower than your body, and your body slower than your name. You're still in the room, same bed, same window, same unfamiliar stillness, but the air feels tighter, not heavier, closer, like the room has shrunk while you slept in, not to trap you, but to mark you. As if the walls have agreed, you're not passing through anymore, you belong to the pause, you swing your feet to the floor, the boards groan, but not from pressure, from recognition. That sound again. Like they remember the shape of your weight now. You dress without thinking. Clothes that have started to forget they weren't always yours. Outside, the wind is doing something new. It's not moving. Just present, as if the whole world is holding a breath it doesn't intend to release. You walk outside. No one greets you, but no one avoids you either. You're not strange now. You're included. And somehow, that's worse. Down the road, by the split tree that leans over like it's listening to the dirt, you see him. The man in a coat with no dust on it. That wasn't for. He's tying, not to anything. Just nodding it again and again. A-nodding. Retrying. His fingers move slow, not out of age, but deliberation. He doesn't look up when you approach, but he speaks. Most folks think the knot's what kills you. The rope curls around his palm like it's tired of meaning one thing. He keeps going. It ain't. It's the pause. That 1 second, between the floor dropping and the rope catching. He lets the loop dangle. That second, that's when your body figures out what your soul already knew. You wait. He smiles, barely. It wasn't the fall. It was the permission. You sit beside him, say nothing. Because in the West, silence is how we say, I'm still listening. Further up the road, a bell rings. You've never heard it before. Not church, not warning. Just one chime. Dull, final. You follow the sound. It leads to the old water tower, bent at the knees like a man too proud to kneel but too tired to stand. At the base, a table. Laid out like a meal without food. Plates, forks, napkins. Each setting arranged with a small rock in the center of the plate. No names, no people. Just waiting. You recognize one of the rocks. From the graveyard. You pick it up. There's a single letter scratched into the underside. L. That's all. You set it back. Whatever this table was meant for, it wasn't meant for answers. Just placements. There's a story that the wind tells here. You've started to hear it. Not in words. In patterns. Certain gusts only arrive when you're facing north. Certain stillnesses fall when you ask questions you shouldn't. This afternoon, the wind says nothing. It listens. You pass the well again. This time, the plank is back. But something's carved into it now. Not just visible. It says, he asked where the water came from. Now it comes from him. You step back, not because of the words, because of the way they waited for you to read them. There's a church door left open again. But not the front, the back. You didn't know there was a second entrance. Now you do. You go inside. Everything is reversed. The wall, the pews are shorter. The cross is upside down, not in rebellion, but and there's a book open on the pulpit. Not the Bible, something older, smaller, with torn pages and no spine. Inside, only one phrase, written over and over again. The land remembers those who forget their names. Every line is different handwriting. Every one. You run your finger across the ink. Some of it flakes off, some of it sinks in. You close the book, and for a moment, the room exhales, as if your silence was a kind of answer. By now, you know where the town ends, or you thought you did. But today, the road is longer. You walk, past the same marker 3 times. A wooden post with a horseshoe nailed to it, upside down. You turn back, still end up facing forward. The West doesn't trap you, it traps you with options, the illusion of choice, so you stop. And just like that, the road ends, not with a canyon. With a mirror, tall, cracked. Buried halfway in the dirt like someone once tried to bury their reflection. You look. And you see someone behind you again. This time it's a boy, hat too large, shoulders too straight. Holding something wrapped in cloth. You turn. No one. But the scent lingers, gunpowder, leather, and disappointment. You touch the mirror. It's warm. And for a second, it shudders. Not glass, the reflection. Like it's breathing. And holding your breath. Back in town, the sky's changing again. Not darker, not lighter, just slower, as if time forgot how to leave. You pass the ladder builder. He's added 2 new rungs. One says, ask it nicely. The other, don't say your real name. You don't ask what it is. Because by now, you understand. Every time someone asks the wrong question out loud, something else learns how to answer. You return to your room. There's a rope on your bed. Coiled. Neat. New. Tied in the same knot you saw. No note. No threat. Just placed, as if you left it there for yourself. The window's still closed. The door was locked. But something's been inside. Not a person. A decision. Waiting for you to pick it up. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West, because the West isn't something you survive. It's something you carry. A rope in your hand. A name you don't say. A breath that isn't yours anymore. You sleep. But not deep, because even in dreams, the land listens. And tonight, the rope dreams too. The rope is gone when you wake. Not stolen. Not moved. Gone. No trace on the bed. No indent. No dust displaced. It's as if it was never there, only offered. You sit up slowly, not because you're sore, but because you're aware. Aware of how still the room is, how still you are. There's no sound outside. Not even the wind. And that, in the West, is not a comfort. It's a verdict. You step outside. And nothing moves. No birds, no animals. No people. The dust, usually shifting, unsettled, whispering its own ancient stories under boots and wheels, now sits perfectly still, like it's watching. Like it's waiting. You head down the main road. Every building door is open. Not just enough to suggest a decision was made, and not by the person who once locked it. Like held breath. Boots on porches are all turned inward now, facing home. Or something pretending to be it. The saloon's swinging doors don't swing. They stare. Inside, every chair is turned away from the tables. Toward the mirror, and the mirror shows nothing. Not your reflection. Not the room, just a stretch of white light, empty and endless, like someone took the sky and folded it into a sheet and forgot to press the corners. Behind the bar, a single glass, still full. The liquid inside has a skin on it now. Like it's aged 50 years since last night. And next to it, a note, scrawled on burlap, don't blink today. You set it down without touching it. Because something in your chest already knows what that means. You walk, up past the church. The back door is gone. Not open. Gone. Just a rectangle of dark, like a missing mouth. Inside, the pews are facing each other now. Not in rows, like witnesses. At the altar, there's no book. Just a chair, and a bucket. Empty. Both facing the doorway, like someone was about to begin something, but forgot what. You don't go in. Because today feels like a page, and the moment you enter, your name gets inked in. You follow the path toward the old well. But it's not there anymore. In its place, a hole. Wider, deeper, breathing. The air that rises out of it is wrong. It smells like the inside of a decision. You kneel beside it. And you hear it. Not a voice, a rhythm, steady, slow. Counting. You try not to understand. But it forces its way in. Each breath it takes matches your heartbeat. You back away. And the breathing doesn't follow, because it's already inside you. Further out, by the field where the cart once stood, there's movement. But not wind. The grass shifts in shapes, like footsteps made of absence. You stare too long. And then the shapes stop moving. Like they've noticed. Like you became the anomaly. There's a word scratched into the dirt, just beyond where the grass begins. Again. Not a request. Not a memory, just that one word. Waiting to be read. You don't step past it. You already know what's beyond it. The part of the West that doesn't forgive curiosity. You turn back toward town. It is gone. The man who carved it, in its place, a single nail in the ground. Bent, still warm. You stare down at it. not because it's meaningful, but because it isn't. And that's the West's favorite trick, making you desperate for symbols in a place where nothing cares if you understand. You pick up the nail. It hums, not audibly, just in your bones. You tuck it into your pocket. A reminder that some days don't want to be survived. They want to be obeyed. Back in town, the undertaker's building has changed. The coffin is gone. The table is bare, and the mirror, now there's two. One on each wall, both reflecting nothing but distance. You stand between them and feel a breeze that doesn't come from either side. A third direction. Not left. Not right. Beneath, you kneel. The floorboards creak. But not the ones you're kneeling on. Below. And there it is, a whisper. Not yours, someone else's breath caught in the wood. You don't make out the words, but you feel their shape. You're close, and for the first time today, you realize, you're not meant to escape this town. You're meant to find something in it. But the West won't tell you what. That's the price. You search without knowing the shape of what you've lost. Evening comes early, the sun doesn't set, it leaves, like it no longer wants to be responsible for what happens next. The street is lined with chairs, all facing the same way. Toward the old shack outside town. The one you haven't entered yet. The one that waits with too much patience. You stand among the chairs. Not sitting. Not welcomed. Just witnessing, one by one, the chairs begin to, not from people, from agreement. As if whatever they were waiting for is finally looking back. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West. Because the day would see you. It would name you in a language you can't hear, and it would mark you in places your skin doesn't remember. There are no survivors here, only participants, people who spoke too softly for their own bones to hear them. People who forgot how to blink, people who waited so long to understand the silence. It started answering without permission. And tonight, as the dust finally shifts again, just slightly, you feel it. The wind returning. But it's not the same wind. It's you. Leaving pieces behind, one breath at a time. Somewhere in the night, you crossed a line. Not marked. Not mapped. Not visible, even now. But felt. Deep in the marrow of you. The kind of line the land doesn't draw for the lost, only for the ones who get too close. You wake in the doorway of a place you don't remember entering. The floor beneath you is cold. Clean, worn smooth, not by feet, but by decisions. The kind of place that doesn't ask who you are. Just waits to see what you'll leave behind. Outside, dawn struggles to form. The light is soft, sure, but disloyal. It flickers at the edges, like it might forget what it came for. And the town? It's changed again. Not dramatically. Not cruelly. Just deliberately, as if something you can't name is repositioning everything slightly, adjusting chairs, slanting shadows, folding windows inward. Preparing. For what, you don't know. But everything you pass feels like it's been warned. You walk toward the field. The one with the boot fence, and it's bigger now. Wider, the boots are rearranged, not in rows. In shapes, some kind of spiral. You can't see the full pattern from where you stand, and you don't want to. Each boot has been filled. Not with dirt. Not with straw. But with notes, folded pages, some scrawled, some typed, some torn from ledgers. You kneel by the nearest. Carefully remove the page. A single sentence. I thought I had more time. You move to another. I only lied once, and I still remember how it tasted. And another. They never found the other well. You stop reading. Because you realize the boots aren't graves, they're receipts, and someone out here is keeping a record of every unfinished ending. By now, the dogs are gone. You hadn't noticed before. But now their absence feels loud. You wander behind the saloon, where they used to sleep in the shade. There's a mark on the ground, circular, pressed into the, inside it, a chain. Not broken. Not snapped. Unlatched, you reach down. The chain is warm, still holding the shape of whatever it used to bind. And suddenly you understand, the dogs weren't here to warn you about danger, they were the warning. And now that they're gone, the West is ready to speak more clearly. At the edge of the map, the real one, the one made of instinct, not ink, you find the orchard. It wasn't here yesterday, or maybe it was, and you weren't allowed to see it. The trees are crooked. Each one holds a lantern. Not lit. Each lantern holds a name. Not written. Etched. Inside the glass, you pick one up. And your vision narrows. Not from pain, from proximity. The name in the glass isn't one you know. But it knows you. You feel it. The recognition. The tiny sting in your palm where the metal handle meets skin. You set the lantern down. And the tree groans, not in protest. In relief, like it had been waiting for its name to be read again. Even just once. Back in town, the well is breathing louder. It exhales dust now, soft. Rhythmic. You try not to look at it. But the dust curls in the air like fingers, and the smell, copper, sweat, and something too clean, pulls your attention. You approach. There's a rope, again. This one newer, tied to the edge, lowered into the dark. You grip it, not to descend. Just to connect, and from the depths, you hear something rise. Not a voice, a sound. Like paper tearing underwater. Then. Don't pull. Not shouted. Whispered. Like it came from your own throat. You let go. The rope doesn't sway. It settles. Like it was never meant to move again. You pass the blacksmith's, empty, the tools gone. But the table's still hot. You run your fingers along it, and under the soot and steel, someone's etched a line. When the wind forgets you, you start to remember yourself. You whisper it aloud. And the table hums. Just one, like agreement. Or farewell. Later, in the doorway of the barber's, a new sign. Closed for remainders. You try to read it again. But the letters shift. Now it says, closed for reminder. You look away. Look back. The sign is gone. The church is silent now. Utterly. No wind. No creaking wood. Even the insects have fled. Inside, a single candle has been lit. But it doesn't burn. It glows cold, silver, flickering against, and in the pew, someone sits, a woman. Back straight. Hands folded, eyes closed. You don't speak. You just sit beside her, and after a long moment, she speaks without turning. He's under the town now. You don't ask who. She continues. He's not angry. That's not what he is. That's not what they ever were. You wait. Her voice is brittle, but steady. They were buried with their names still inside them. No stones. No records. Just memory, twisting in the dirt. She finally opens her eyes, and they're not looking at you. They're looking through you. To keep the town alive, we had to keep forgetting. He turns, softly. And now you've remembered too much. You stand. Walk outside. The sun is behind the mountains, but there's no color. Only weight. Like the sky is struggling to hold its own. At the edge of town, the shack is lit. You've never seen light from inside it. You approach. The door is open. Inside, nothing has, except now, there are names, hundreds, written on the walls. The floor, the ceiling, scrawled in ash, chalk, ink, blood, some big. Some small, some repeated. And near the back, on the windowpane, your name. Written clean. With a space beneath it. Like it's waiting for you to write something else, a word, a confession. A date. You don't touch it. But your breath fogs the glass, and the name wavers, as if it doesn't quite believe you're still real. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West, because the land keeps everything you drop. Your voice, your shadow. Your unfinished sentences, and most of all, your name. Not to hurt you. To preserve you. In case someone comes looking. Not for you. But for the part of themselves they left behind, somewhere between the dust and the breathing well, somewhere only you remember now. By now, you no longer walk the way you used to. Your feet don't ask the ground for permission. They simply land, soft, measured, not in fear, but in negotiation. Every step you take is a question. Will you keep me today? And the dust always answers, but never in words, just in the way it parts beneath you, or doesn't. The town is quieter than ever, not empty, just, post-verbal. There's a point in all places, if they last long enough, when language becomes unnecessary. This town reached it years ago. Now everything speaks in objects, in placements, in the weight of a door left open 1 inch wider than yesterday. The general store is locked today, but the key hangs on a string from the window frame. You don't take it. Because what you want isn't in there, what you want is why it was left. And that kind of wanting has no place behind counters. You walk to the riverbed, the one that was dry for days. Today it's wet. Not flowing. Just enough to darken the stone. Enough to suggest movement without proof. And that's the West's favorite trick, isn't it? To make you believe you're witnessing change, when really, you're witnessing memory. You kneel, run a hand across the sediment. It sticks to your skin like a question with too many answers. And in the silence, you hear it again. A hum, faint. But close, like a song someone buried by accident. Or on purpose. A man sits nearby. You didn't see him until now. He's barefoot. Knees pulled to his chest, eyes closed. He holds a jar in his lap, filled with feathers, not bird feathers. Not exactly, they're too fine, too smooth. As if made from parchment, not bone and flight. You ask nothing. He speaks anyway. They used to say the dead would return as birds, but not all of them. Wait, the ones who lied came back wingless, couldn't fly, couldn't stop. He taps the glass once. That's who's in here. A pause. They're still trying to lift off. Later, you reach the schoolhouse. It's slanted now. One side lower than the other, like it's bowing to the earth out of resignation. Inside, the desks are wall. Someone's written an equation there. 0 minus 0 is equal to 1. Below it. Only the forgotten get to stay. You sit. You don't belong here, not as a student. Not as a teacher. But as something in between. A carrier of memory. And in the desk you choose, inside the drawer, a note. Ask the dust if it forgives you. You do. You whisper it. And the dust on the floor begins to rise, just an inch, then settles again. No answer, but not silence, more like consideration. The wind returns mid-afternoon, sharp. Direct. It moves only in straight lines, like a message with a deadline. It pulls your coat. Moves your feet, and soon you find yourself outside the chapel again. But this time, the pews are on the roof, each one occupied. Not by people, by coats, laid across the wood. Folded with care, each one holding shape, like the wearer just stepped out and promised to return. Some still hold hats. One has a letter in its breast pocket. You climb. Take the letter, open it. No salutation. No signature, just 3 lines. We dug without knowing who was underneath. Now we dig because we do. And we're scared to stop. You fold it again. Place it back. Because if this town teaches anything, it's that some messages don't want to be read, they want to be carried. At dusk, you return to the shack. This time, the light inside is red. Not fire. Not heat. Just the suggestion of aftermath. You step in. The names on the walls have faded. The glass window still holds yours, but now, below it, something new. A drawing. Rough, done in ash and water. It's of the town. But not as it was, before you arrived. There's no well. No shack. No rope. Just buildings, straight. Bright. Unguarded. And above it, a title, The Day Before We Let It Happen. You stare, not because it frightens you, but because some part of you recognizes it. Not from memory, From guilt, you sit on the floor, and the shack does not creak. It welcomes. Because out here, sitting down means something. It means you're no longer trying to walk it off. It means the questions are heavier than your boots, and it means you're ready to hear whatever won't stop speaking. A voice, then, soft. Not outside. Inside. Yours, but changed. It says, the West doesn't take people. It keeps the pieces they were too ashamed to bring home. You close your eyes, and the shack fades, not into black, into stillness. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West. Not because it kills you. Because it reminds you who you've been. And waits, to see if you'll admit it. And in that waiting, something shifts, not the town. Not the sky. You. And now, you carry part of it. Whether you want to or not. Whether you leave or not, the West has written its name into the part of you that no longer belongs to me. And when you sleep tonight, you'll dream of boots walking without feet. Of names whispered from the inside of trees, of a wind that doesn't move air, only memory, and it will call you. Not by your name. But by your absence. You don't remember falling asleep. But you remember waking. There's no bed. No room. Just earth, cool, pressed flat by time, not tools. Above you, the sky hangs low, closer than it has any right to be. It doesn't watch. It waits, the horizon's gone. The land stretches forever but offers no line to chase. You are not lost. You are held. And the first thing you feel, rising up through your spine, is a thought that doesn't belong to you. You left something open. You stand. Your boots, still on, not from water, from the kind of damp that comes from walking through memory too long. You look down and find your footprints, but there's only one set. The left, the right is missing. Not erased. Not unmade. Just, withheld, like the land agreed to only let half of you pass, and the rest it kept, for later. The town is visible now. But not in full. Just rooftops, some higher than they should be, some buried. It looks like a place trying to remember itself. Like it's mid-conversation with its own shadow. You walk, no resistance, no invitation. Just the quiet, mutual understanding that you're not a stranger anymore. You're part of the furniture. When you reach the main road, the signs are gone. All of them. The blacksmith's anvil is missing, the rope from the well. The mirror in the saloon. Even the boot fence has fallen. Not broken. Just laid down. Every marker, every symbol, every warning, flattened, as if the town no longer needs to explain itself to you, as if you've been here too long to misunderstand. The church is the only building still standing proud. Door wide. Light pouring out like fog. Inside, the pews have reversed again. Now they face the altar, and on it, a book, not the old, spine-torn volume from before. This one is new. Bound in black, you approach. Your name is on the cover, but not in ink, in dust. Blown lightly across the leather, forming your shape. You don't wipe it away, you don't open the book either. You place your hand on it. And feel the vibration, a steady, low pulse, like a heartbeat, slowed by grief. And suddenly, you know, this isn't a record, it's a promise, one you haven't made yet. But will. Outside, the wind is moving again. It doesn't touch you. It informs you, and this time, it carries something else, a sound, faint. Almost imagined. Like footsteps, on stone. Below the dirt. But rhythmic. Repeating, certain, coming closer. You follow the noise out toward the mine. The mouth is wide now. Hung open like a story someone tried to forget but never finished telling. You stand at its edge, feel the breath again, rising from its depth like steam off memory. You don't speak. But the mine answers anyway. We were never digging for gold. The voice isn't real. It's structural, like the timbers themselves are trying to explain what the men who built them never admitted. We dug because we didn't want to look up anymore, and now, the earth has kept that secret. In layers, in echoes, in bones that never fully collapsed. A crow lands near your feet, silent. Watching. It doesn't call. Doesn't twitch, its eye is missing. In its place, a stone. Polished, set like a jewel, you kneel. The bird doesn't flinch, you speak. Not to it. Not to anyone. Just a sentence that rises without your permission. I left a name in the orchard. The crow blinks its and flies, but it leaves a feather, long straight. Unmarked. You hold it. It hums, soft. Almost maternal, and you know, without proof, that it came from someone who still remembers you. Even if you don't remember them. You walk toward the shack again. But the shack is gone. In its place, a tree. Twisted. Colorless, leafless, at its base, a single chair, the same one from the church, still warm. And nailed to the trunk above it, a piece of cloth, written in careful, shaking strokes, "We didn't build this town. We found it." You sit. Because this is the first thing that's asked you to. You sit. And you listen. And in the air, something begins to form. Not a voice, not yet. But the idea of a voice, the weight of one. And it says, you can leave now, but only in one direction. You close your eyes, and you remember everything. The rope, the breathing well. The boots, the child and her circle of stones, the saddle made for no horse, the feathers in the jar, the barn mirror, the classroom math, the upside-down pews, the handprints on your window that never matched your own. They weren't fragments, they were coordinates, a map, and now, finally, you understand, this town wasn't testing you. It was translating you, piece by piece, and now, you speak its language. Even if your mouth never opens again. You rise, no goodbye. No final image. Because endings aren't currency here, the West doesn't pay in closure, it pays in absorption. Today, the town has claimed enough of you to let you go. Just once, you walk until the horizon remembers how to part. And when you reach its edge, the sky opens like a lid. And something beyond it blinks, not a god. Not a monster. Just awareness, and it says nothing. Because in this place, the things that watch you don't judge, they catalog. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West, because by the time you understand what it wants, you've already given it. And by the time it gives you something back, you've forgotten how to refuse, so you carry it. Not as a story. Not as a trauma. But as translation. And if someone ever asks you what happened out there, you'll say, the dust followed me home. And then you'll go quiet. Because the rest was never meant to be spoken. You've crossed something. You don't know what. There was no gate. No edge, no sign. Just a shift in the way the light moved. The dust behind you has stopped following. Which means, something stayed. And whatever stayed behind wasn't a piece of you. It was the part that used to look over your shoulder and ask, is it over yet? That voice is gone now. Not silenced, spent, the land ahead is flat. But not forgiving. It rolls in stillness, like an ocean that forgot how to wave. And the sky above it? Blank, so blank it feels personal. Like it's erasing something for you. You walk, not out of momentum. Out of trust. Because the Wild West doesn't chase, it pulls. Somewhere along the path, a tree appears, lone. Unmoving. Its bark is smooth, like it's been handled too many times by hands that weren't asking for fruit, they were asking for memory. You sit beneath it. And you feel it instantly, a thrum, soft. Consistent. Not in the ground. In the air. Like the wind has a heartbeat now. You touch the trunk. It's warm. And just beneath the surface, under bark, under time, you feel words, not carved. Grown. Formed from the grain itself, as if the tree didn't just live through history, you lean closer, and for the first time since you entered this place, something speaks clearly. They didn't bury the town. They taught it how to hold its breath. You rise. There's a building ahead. Wood, low roof, painted white once, long ago. It's not part of the town. It's older, more patient. Inside, a single room. Empty, except for a desk, and on that desk, a box, unlatched. Open. Inside the box, a tooth, a key, and a ring of twine. Each object sits in its own depression, like it has weight even without mass. You touch none of them. Because you know this isn't an offer, it's a testimony. Of what? Of loss, but not tragic loss, intentional loss, the kind that happens when you choose to let a piece of yourself rot, so the rest of you can keep walking forward. You close the box, not gently. And something in the air shivers. By the time the sky darkens, you find a fence, not the kind that keeps things out, the kind that suggests a shape. A perimeter around nothing. But inside it, just one. Not facing the road. Not facing the town. Facing east. Back toward where you came from, you sit. And the chair creaks, not from pressure, but from recognition. Like it's held you before, and now it knows what's changed. You reach into your coat pocket. The feather is still there, still humming, fainter now. You place it on the ground, and it stops humming. As if it's found where it was meant to be laid down. A witness, not to the past. To you. Now. In the distance, something begins to move. A figure, walking slow. Dust doesn't follow them. It avoids them. They wear a wide-brimmed hat, coat too long. No sound as they walk. You stay seated. They approach, and when they stop 10 feet away, they tilt their head. Not in greeting. In confirmation. Like they've been looking for someone. Not you specifically. But the version of you that would sit in this chair. They raise a hand. Inside it, a mirror, small, cracked, the same kind you saw in the shack. They hold it toward you. Not offering it. Reflect, you look, and what you see isn't yourself. Not your body. Not your face, but the shape of your silence. Tall. Coiled. Watching you back. You look away. And the figure is gone. No footsteps, no goodbye. Just the mirror, lying on the dust. You leave it. Because what it showed. It will keep showing. Whoever comes next. You walk again. You don't know where, but the ground grows firmer, the wind steadier, and the sun, still absent, leaves behind a strange residue, like heat without warmth. You pass a doorframe standing alone in the field. No house, just frame and hinges. A note tacked to the side. Written in clean block letters, close this behind you, even if there's no door. You walk through it. And you do. You pretend to reach back, you pretend to pull. And the act of pretending is enough. Something seals, something old. And something grateful. The horizon comes fast now. It doesn't rise, and with it, the last piece of the west. A sound. Distant. Endless, like rope spinning. Like blood moving slow through veins that don't belong to you. Like an echo, looking for a mouth. You stop walking. Let it pass through you. And when it does, you understand. The West was never a place, not really. It was a moment. Held too long. By too many, until it became shape. Until it became need. Until it became you. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West. Because days don't end here, they just stop making noise, and in that quiet, you hear things you didn't know were still alive inside you. Regret, yearning. The names of people you promised you'd never forget, but did. The version of yourself you swore you buried, but didn't. And the thing that never left the well, still breathing, still counting. You take one last step. And the dust rises, not to follow, to close, behind you, sealing the breath you didn't realize you'd been holding. And somewhere, out beyond time, out past maps, past memory, someone speaks. Not a curse, not a farewell. Just a statement, simple and whole. It remembers you now. And it does, forever. There's a strange kind of clarity that comes after something ends but refuses to finish. You walk, and the land beneath your boots no longer feels wild. Not feral. Just aware. It's no longer resisting you. But it's not inviting you. You are not a guest here, not anymore. You're part of the architecture. The trees lean toward your breath. The wind carries your hesitation. The sky adjusts its silence to match your gait. You don't belong to this place. You belong to what it became the moment it learned your weight. There's a hill ahead. One you hadn't seen before, not high. Just meant. It was dust like a question someone once dared to ask, and then buried beneath 30 years of second thoughts. At the top, there's nothing. Which is to say, everything the land wanted to protect is underneath. You sit. The ground is warm. Alive. Not with heat, but with residue. What you feel isn't history. It's memory that hasn't been given permission to fade. You press your hand to the soil. And you feel the shape of a name. Not written, slept in. There's no alphabet here. Just weight. Just form. And beneath your palm, you sense it. This was someone's last decision, not the one that killed them. The one before that, the one that said, I'll stop being loud. From where you sit, the town is a smear. Distance has taken its definition. No buildings now. Just impressions, shadowed outlines and softened edges, like a painting in rain. It no longer feels like a place. It feels like aftermath. And still, it waits, like it knows there's one more question left inside you. One you haven't spoken aloud because part of you fears the answer will arrive. You ask it anyway, softly. Without voice, without throat. Just thought. Was this ever meant to be survivable? And the hill answers. Not with sound. With stillness, a deeper stillness than you've yet felt. The kind that suggests you're not alone. But you are no longer needed. You walk again. Not to move forward. Just to listen. Because movement, in this place, creates a language. Your boots become a type of speech. Your breath, punctuation. Even your hesitation, grammar. And as you walk, the land responds, not by shifting. By remembering. You pass a rock you've never seen but know you've already walked by. You see a tree that wasn't there 2 hours ago but holds your scent in its bark. And the sky? It begins to crack, not break. Just thin. Revealing a layer of observation beneath it. As if something has been behind this whole time. Watching not just you, but the idea of you. Eventually, you find the cabin. Its door is open. Of course it is. Inside, 3 chairs, 1 table, a window with no glass, and a floor made of mismatched boards. But there's no dust. None. Every surface has been cleaned, not recently. Not by hand, by time. As if the years themselves came through and wiped away every trace of whoever sat here last. You sit. And you wait, for nothing in particular, and sure enough, it comes, not a person. Not a voice, a gesture. The air shifts, the wood groans, the window sighs, and in the corner, something moves, not forward. Not closer. Just differently. Like a shadow remembering it once had legs. You don't stand. You don't run. You don't speak, you let it move. And when it stops, you hear it. The smallest sentence in the smallest breath. We forgot to bury the last story. You nod. Not because you understand. But because the moment doesn't require understanding. Only agreement. And walk to the corner. There's nothing there. Just a crack in the wall, thin and clean, like someone drew a line with, inside that crack, paper. You pull it free. It's folded like a map. But what's drawn on it isn't directions. It's a timeline. Events without context. Moments without markers. Each one followed by a check mark, all but the last. Your finger down the column. The last one reads, Arrival. You pick up the pencil lying on the table. The only item with dust. And you make the mark. And when you do, something behind your eyes lets go. Not your thoughts, not your fears, something older, the part of you that was never allowed to finish any goodbye. You step outside. The hill behind you is lower now. Not eroded. Just, relieved. Like it's been holding its breath since you left it. And now it exhales. A crow passes overhead. The same kind. One eye. One stone. But this time, it drops something. At your feet, a photograph. Black and white. At the corner, it shows the town. Full. Alive. Windows glowing. Horses waiting. People moving between shadows like they trust them. But at the center of the photograph, a blur, faint. Wide-shouldered. Your shape. You flip it over. In pencil, this version left something behind. That's all, you keep it. Because not all ghosts are dead, some are just things we didn't mean to abandon. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West. Because survival means returning. And the West doesn't believe in circles. Only spirals. Every path out is a descent, every mile walked is a version of yourself giving up a name, a memory, a gesture no one else will know how to carry. And when the dust finally rests, it doesn't settle over you. It leans into you. Like it knows, you're the last person who remembers what almost happened here, and what didn't, still might. Because this land isn't done dreaming yet, it just needed someone to stay still long enough, to dream it forward. There are no paths left. Only implications. You walk now not because the land guides you, but because your own breath has become directional. Each inhale feels drawn. Each exhale feels measured, as if your lungs are negotiating terms with something older than air. And that's what this has become, hasn't it? Not a journey, not a warning. A negotiation. Between you. And the place that never promised it wanted you here in the first place. The buildings are returning. But they aren't where you left them. The general store is now on the west edge. The church has folded in on itself, like a letter read too many times. The saloon no longer has walls. Just 4 upright beams and a piano in the center. No keys, just the sound they used to make. You run your hand along the top of the frame. It's cold, but it hums, like it remembers being played. Like the memory of music is louder than the thing itself. That's the rule here, isn't it? Echoes are permanent. Events are temporary. Someone's rebuilt the boot fence, but differently. The boots now face in, toward a center you cannot see. You approach, slowly. And when you reach the heart of it, there is no monument. No altar, just a rope. Tied in a loop. Lying flat. Like it's made peace with not being used. And underneath it, carved into the dirt, he left before he realized he was already part of the ground. You step back. You're not sure who he was, but you know you've walked in his shape more than once. By midday, you find the well again. Only this time, it's full, clear, still. The water doesn't reflect. It remembers. You look down and you see yourself, not as you are, but as you've been. Flashes. Your first hour here. Too clean, too fast. Then, your hand on the door to the shack. Your name on the window. Then, your shadow stepping away from the rope without touching it. Then, your silence, carried through a church pew like it belonged there. It shows you the moments that made you part of this place. Not the dramatic ones, the small ones, the ones no one else noticed. And you realize, that's how the West keeps you. It collects your almosts, your unspoken. And when it has enough, it stops letting you leave in one piece. You pull away from the well. Not because you're frightened, because you're finished. You no longer need proof that this place saw you. It stored you. And it's offering you back to yourself. But only if you promise not to flinch. Near the outer edge of town, there's a new structure. Small. Octagonal. Its walls are mirrors, cracked and stained with soot. But when you enter, you realize they don't reflect you. They reflect others. 12 people. None familiar, each doing something ordinary, drinking. Digging. Kissing someone who isn't facing them, staring out a window that looks onto nothing but fog. They loop, each of them repeating a moment that never needed to matter, until it was the last thing they did. You turn to leave. But in the final mirror, you catch it. A reflection of you. Not here, back home, sitting at a table. Reading something. Or trying to. And crying, not loudly, not performatively, just, leaking. Like a person who thought silence meant safety and found out otherwise. You blink. The image fades, and on the wall behind the mirror, a word scratched in wood. Re-entry. You step outside. And the wind shifts, not direction. Tone. It sounds different now. Less breath, more voice, but still indistinct. Like someone across a room, whispering your name in a dialect you used to know. You follow it. And it leads you to a field you've never crossed. Golden, brittle grass, waist-high. At its center, a tree with no branches, just a trunk, splintered at the top. A scar more than a silhouette. At the base, a journal. Open. One page written, in handwriting you don't recognize, and yet, you know exactly who wrote it. I didn't come here to stay, I came here to forget, and instead I remembered everything I was before I started lying. You reach to turn the page, but there are no more, just a single dried flower pressed between the last two. Not for beauty. For context. You leave it untouched. Some endings don't need to be unwrapped. Evening comes slow. But not heavy. Light in the sky, but only in suggestion. A smear of amber where the sun used to mean something. You sit on a ridge, overlooking a stretch of nothing you can finally accept, and beside you, for the first time, someone sits. No sound. No introduction. Just wait. And presence. You don't ask who they are, because whoever they are, they've earned this seat beside you. And in a place like this, that's all you need to know. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West. Because eventually, survival becomes residence, and residence becomes complicity. You start to look at the dust like it's familiar. You start to walk past mirrors without checking. You start to believe that the silence owes you something. But it doesn't. It never did. All it ever offered was a place for your voice to disappear gently. And that's what this place is, isn't it? A landscape designed not to kill, but to listen you into softness, so slow. You almost think it was your idea. And tonight, as you close your eyes with your back against a doorframe no longer connected to a building, you don't dream of leaving. You dream of something far quieter. Being remembered, accurately. Not with glory. Not with tragedy. Just, truthfully, and the West, it nods, it accepts your request. And files it, somewhere in the wind. There is no mourning now. Only a shift in the color of silence. The land doesn't brighten. The shadows don't retreat. They simply rearrange themselves, like mourners at a wake that's gone on too long. You open your eyes to find yourself lying in the center of a crossroads. But no roads lead anywhere. They twist into themselves, bending in quiet defiance of geography. Each path loops gently back to where you began, without warning, without shame. And that's when it hits you. This isn't a place where you get lost. It's a place where you're meant to return to the same question. Again and again. Until you finally ask it the right way. There's an object in your coat pocket. You don't remember placing it there. You reach in. It's the nail, the bent one from the ladder maker, only now, it's straight. Polished. Cool. And tied to it with a loop of fraying twine is a piece of paper, folded tight. Folded old. You open it slowly, and the creases fight you. Not out of resistance, but out of memory. As if this paper has been opened before by you. Or by the version of you that didn't leave last time. One word, written in charcoal, prove. You stare at it. You wait for something more. There isn't. Because in this place, proof isn't given, it's felt. Or not. And you're starting to understand. The Wild West was never testing your body, it was testing your witness. The church is gone. Not burned, not collapsed, evaporated. In its place is a circle of benches, 12 of them, facing each other. Empty. But every seat has a coin on it. Same kind you saw in the room that first night. One side scratched out. One side blank, as if each coin is waiting. You walk the circle, slow. On the seventh bench, you sit. Not because it calls to you. Because your legs stop moving. The coin beside you is warm. You pick it up, and for the first time since arriving, something watches you directly. Not behind the wind, not through the dust. Direct. You don't look up. You don't need to. Its presence isn't an eye. It's an agreement. You've made it this far. You've walked through mirrors and names and breath and time. And you still want to understand. The coin cools, you place it back, and the benches creak, together. One long, groaning inhale, then still. You head toward the last place you haven't gone. The hill with the door. It's taller now. A crown of stone at the top. And as you climb, you pass old fragments, not ruins, versions, a glove filled with dirt. A belt still looped, a photograph of a child with no eyes drawn in. A spoon balanced on a fence post. Every item feels like a checkpoint. And you realize, you've been making a map. Not of the town. Of your failures, every moment you chose to keep walking instead of staying, every silence you didn't interrupt, every door you didn't open. They're here. Marked. Catalogued. Not to haunt you. To hold you. Because even your ghosts want to know if you'll finish the sentence this time. At the summit, the door stands alone. Not part of anything. Just, present. The sign is gone. You reach out, and this time, you knock, 3 times, then once more, softer, because some part of you wants it to answer. It doesn't. Not with words. The knob turns on its own. The door opens outward. And behind it, a flat, colorless sky. No ground. No wall, just space, like the concept of memory before it's attached to anything real. You step through. It's not a dream. It's not a void. It's clarity. And it's built from things you didn't want to remember. Your father's last unfinished sentence. The apology you meant to give someone who no longer. The time you saw someone cry and looked away, not out of cruelty, but out of confusion. The chair you refused to sit in at your grandmother's funeral. The photo you kept even after forgetting who was in it. The moment you felt proud of yourself, and never told anyone. All of it. Present, circling you. Not judging. Just watching. Like they've been waiting to see if you'd come back on your own. You speak. You say the only thing that feels honest. I wasn't ready, and the air answers, then you're ready now. You step forward once. The memories don't move. But they, like wind-blown grass in a field, like a town you once belonged to, tilting its head at the sound of your name, you reach out, and for the first time, you touch one. A moment you left It doesn't sting. It doesn't dissolve. It just becomes part of you again. Like a tendon reattached. Like a sigh that took 12 years to complete. You move to the next. And the next. And the next. You're not fixing them. You're reclaiming them. And slowly, you feel the map change. Not around you. Inside you. You step back through the door. The hill is smaller now. Your boots feel heavier, but not with burden. With completion. And below, silent, still. But aligned. Buildings have returned to where they first were. Chairs face the table again. The mirror holds your reflection. The well is dry. And, because the last thing it was holding is now walking upright. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West, because survival means learning to leave something behind. And knowing it might follow anyway. It means sitting in silence long enough to hear the shape of your own name. It means walking a town that never ends the same way twice, and agreeing, finally, that some places don't want to be escaped. They want to be understood. And tonight, when the sky forgets to close, when the stars blink like tired clerks in a forgotten post office, lay down in the middle of the crossroads again. Not lost. Not waiting. Just listening, and for the first time. Nothing needs to answer. This is the last time you wake here. You feel it immediately. It's not the air, it's the stillness of the air. Not absence of movement, but permission to leave. The silence no longer grips you. It rests on your shoulders like a coat that finally fits. And yet, the dust still remembers your weight. The ground does not rush you. The sky doesn't wave goodbye. Even now, this place teaches by restraint, because the Wild West was never designed to chase you out. It was made to see if you'd leave with less than you came in with. The town is whole again. But not restored. Settled. The boards of the saloon no longer lean. The chapel stands upright. Even the windmill, long frozen in half-turn, completes one full revolution as you pass. There's no music. No murmurs, just the sensation that everything has stopped performing. And now it simply is. You return to the general store. The door is open, but no bell greets you. Inside, every shelf is full again. But not with goods, with letters, stacks of them. Thousands, every size, every paper, some sealed, some torn open. Some half-written and never sent. You scan the room. One envelope is resting near the register. Your name is on it. Not the name you gave. The name you never said aloud, not here. You pick it up. Inside, a single slip of paper. No signature, just one line. You listened. That's all the West ever asked. You leave the shop and walk toward the edge of town. The boot fence is gone now. But where it stood, someone's drawn a long, slow curve in the dirt. A shape you don't recognize, until you step around it. From a different angle, it forms a question mark. No words, just the shape of curiosity preserved. It no longer needs an answer, it just wants to be understood. The well is quiet, covered now. A small wooden lid nailed into place. No more rope. No more breath, just a message carved into the edge. Everything buried here was done so with consent. You kneel beside it. Place your hand on the lid. The wood is warm. And beneath it, for the first time, there is no presence, only peace. You wonder if it was ever a well at all. Or just a mouth for silence, waiting for someone to speak into it without trembling. As you move through town, faces reappear, not real ones. Outlines, in glass, in windows, in the folds of doorways, they don't move. But you can tell, they've moved on. Whatever needed to witness you, has. Whatever needed to judge you, didn't. Whatever needed to remember you, already has. There's nothing left to explain. You've become part of the furniture. And now, you're being released from it. You reach the hill one final time. The door is still there, but now it's closed. A sign hangs from its knob. You don't need to knock anymore. You place your hand on the wood. It doesn't creak. It accepts. You open it. And on the other side. Not void. Not sky. But echo. Your echo. Not of your voice, but of your impact. What you disturbed. What you mended. What you almost broke, but instead, held still. The echo is shaped like a town. Like a question. Like a small, tired heartbeat that never learned how to stop. You nod, step through. And the door closes itself behind you. You're back in the open plain now. No sign of where the town used to be. No boot prints, no bones, no rope, but the sky knows. It has your handwriting in it now. Thin wisps of clouds shaped like unfinished sentences, phrases left unsaid. Moments left incomplete. They curl and dissolve as the wind rearranges them. But the sky is patient. And the sky, like the town, never forgets a good listener. You find one last marker ahead. A stone, small, flat. Pressed into the earth at a slant. There's something written on it. You kneel, brush away the dust. And there it is. He didn't die here. He just stopped needing to be seen. You smile. Because for the first time since this started, the sentence isn't about someone else, it's about you. And it's true, the sun is rising, but not for show. No gold, no grand display, just a slow, even spread of light across the ground. The kind of light that doesn't ask for your attention. Just your continuance. You begin walking. The land opens before you, flat, dry, and endlessly interpretable. Not because it's yours, because it no longer resists you, and behind you, something small stirs. Not to follow, just to nod. You wouldn't survive a day in the Wild West. But maybe that was never the point. Maybe the point was to be seen long enough to change. To be forgotten just enough to shed the name you no longer needed. To leave behind your noise, and become texture. As the final stretch opens wide before you, you reach into your coat one last time. The photograph is still there, now faded at the edges. The figure in the center has sharpened. It's not a blur anymore, it's not someone else, it's you, standing exactly where you are now. Only smiling. Just barely, you stop walking. Not because you're lost. But because you've carried this story as far as it needs to go. The rest? The rest will be told by the wind. And the wind has your handwriting now. And it knows exactly what to do with it.